My question is very brief. Thank you all for being vociferous crusaders against this corruption movement. But the question here is, over these past years, we've unearthed a lot of scams, both in India and across the world. But one of the biggest problems we are having is recovery of the monies that have been usurped. And you spoke about Madhukoda and others. Who is responsible for the recovery, and how do we go about actually recovering these lakhs of crores that have actually been usurped?
In your heat map of corruption, there were some developing nations that were also green. What were the three things they were doing that other developing nations can learn to become green, or at least move in that direction?
Well, I would put it a bit differently, because I'm a proud citizen of a developing country that has made such significant inroads like Chile, and there are a number of so-called developed countries that like to ask us for some lessons. And as I mentioned before, I think that there are countries like Italy and Greece and others that have a lot to learn from some quote-unquote emerging economies and developing countries. So the reality is much more mixed in terms of just apportioning as if the developed countries are all the great lessons and developing all have to learn. There's a lot of South-South learning going on nowadays. We know about the BRICS, but many other settings. At the end of the day, many of the lessons apply across the board, and I know that some of them are going to be discussed much more in depth in other sessions. Because one issue that has not been discussed a lot today, although I didn't hear it all until now, and it's so important, except I heard it in the great introductory comments, is the issue of political finance and political campaign financing. The whole problem of money in politics and the corruption that is associated with that, it's in some sense an issue, a challenge that becomes larger, not smaller, as a country develops and becomes, in some sense, with more ingrained in democratic institutions and so on. It's part and parcel, and it's a huge issue where I sit here in the United States and so on. It's something that it's being debated today, in fact, in Parliament in Chile regarding a new law for lobbying, what constitutes lobbying. So there is much more focus, and thankfully so, on this whole issue of money in politics, as opposed to just looking at the bureaucratic bribery, which used to be the focus in the old days. So that's one of the lessons, in fact, from graduating to a more emerging and developed status, but not necessarily a lesson in terms of having gotten rid of corruption. No country gets fully rid of corruption. In terms of models where have become success cases, and there's a lot to look at, but they're quite different, are the Scandinavian models, where there's a lot to be said about social cohesion, the importance given to equality, where money does not play the same role than in some other societies where the object is just to maximize income and profit. So the social compact that those countries have, it's very important. Similarly, there are good lessons from countries like New Zealand and some in emerging countries. At the end of the day, every country is different, and there are going to be different areas, but that one has to focus. But the topics that are being covered by your conference apply universally. So the issue of the public allocation of resources, and where natural resources are important is critical. Issues of public procurement, issues of transparency, civil society involvement, and having that space is important. The judiciary plays an absolutely key role, either way, and whether there is truly an effective independent judiciary, and that where rule of law does function. Rule of law as opposed to rule of man, and where there is more sanction, less impunity is is of high importance. And again, those are general topics, obviously, and the devil will be in the details of what type of actions and reforms will apply, which will be country specific. And the concrete implementation of those is where, in many countries, the problem lies, because there are many good intentions and new governments that come to play, but then implementation falters. In many cases, because of political obstacles that usually emerge after the 100 days honeymoon period, but also sometimes we do not take sufficiently into account institutional and capacity constraints. And that's where sharing of experiences of what is more simple, what works more realistically, and not to overload a reform program or an action program, but to have it focus on the 3 to 5 real priorities that if there is progress within a year or two in those, that will matter so much more than having 128 planned measures of which there is partial implementation on a few and not necessarily on the most important one. I myself, and to finish this comment, it's also important to codify what has not worked and what has been sometimes overemphasized. There's a lot of emphasis on anti-corruption campaigns, anti-corruption programs. I think Russia is on its 18th anti-corruption campaign, and those are become just political vehicles for PR, but in themselves, they usually don't deliver the good. It has to be associated with more systemic institutional reform. Anti-corruption commissions typically do not work either, with a few exceptions, because they tend to become part of the problem and not part of the solution. But there are some exceptions, and Singapore was an exception. I know that there are new initiatives in the case of India, and the world is watching, and it will be very interesting. But one has to learn from the lessons of experience. Most of those show that just trying to throw another new institution at the problem is not necessarily a solution, rather than working with the existing institutional framework. Adopting new anti-corruption laws, it's also, in many cases, has not worked. Most of the world, most of the countries in the world, even the most corrupt, have decent laws on the book. The problem is on the implementation of those laws, in the application of rule of law, and B, on the complementary institutional reforms, whether that's on transparency measures, and having civil society space, procurement, or very importantly, finance campaign reform.